Hi, I'm David Deangelo. Welcome to my program, Meeting Women in Bars and Clubs and Other Public Places. In this program, we're going to talk about a very fun topic, going out and meeting single women in those places where they congregate. It's those places that seem like the biggest challenge to guys. It's the most alluring place. It's where women dress up and get themselves all fixed up, and most guys go out and just stand on the wall and look, or stand next to the dance floor and watch them dance. And in this program, we're going to talk about how to actually meet them and how to be successful meeting them. Our topic is going to be just meeting women in bars and clubs and other public places. We're going to talk a lot about how-tos. We're going to get into a lot of specifics. We're going to talk about a million techniques. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about some theory and some philosophy and some concepts, some things to kind of wrap around those techniques to help you be more successful with them. You need to decide first what success looks like for you. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is decide what you want. I think a mistake that a lot of guys make in this area is they look at what everyone else is doing, and they look at success that other people have, and then they decide what success will look like from them based on that. They look at a guy who can walk up to a woman in a bar and, start dancing with her and kissing her and go, that's what I want to do. Or they hear about some legend that's a friend of a friend of a friend, and they go, oh, that's what I want, that's my idol. The interesting thing about success is that if you know what it looks like for you, you'll be more likely to get it. If you're trying to become someone else's success or become someone else, you're very unlikely to become that because they have their own set of challenges and their own set of strengths. You'll never be able to be just like them. So do yourself a favor right now. Write down what success looks like for you. Okay, if you can, write it down. Write down what you'd like to get out of this program. When you're finished with the program and with the work that you're going to need to do, what would you like it to look like? What skills would you like? What kind of success would you like to have? Do that now. Take a couple of minutes. Now here's an interesting thought I'd like to put in your head. Naturals, those guys that are naturally successful with women, they kind of laugh at the work that we're doing right now. I have a reason for this, so go with me. Now, many friends of mine who are naturals at all of these complex techniques and crafty little tricks that we're going to talk about, these naturals have a fundamental understanding of how to communicate with and attract women that becomes more apparent after you understand the techniques. Okay? The reason why they laugh will become more apparent to you after you understand these things. To a natural, the only thing that's required is knowing how the mating game works, being able to read a woman's body language and subtle cues, and then just being a man, just being who he already is. So think about that for a sec. Keep this in mind as you learn, and make your objective to ultimately develop that part of yourself that already knows how to meet and attract a woman you've just met. Not to learn a million techniques to make up for the fact that you can't do it naturally. Think about eventually evolving past the point where you need the techniques. You can get to a point where you're unconsciously competent and you can respond to each opportunity with women without having to think about it or even consider it. This might be the biggest piece right here. You need to commit to yourself right now. Okay, you need to make a commitment to yourself. You need to commit to using the material that you're about to learn. I recommend that you make a 90-day commitment to yourself. 90 days. Go out at least once every week, at least once, preferably twice, and spend 1 hour every day working on, reviewing, going over the materials, talking about them, teaching other people. If you'll spend an hour a day for 90 days and you'll go out once a week for 90 days and use what you've learned, you will be dramatically more successful. You're the one that made the investment. Okay, you spent the money. You're spending the time to go through this material. The ball is now in your court. You need to take it, and then you need to go use what you're learning. It's immature to think that sitting and listening to someone talk about something is going to change everything for you. Okay, you need to take it. You need to go use it. So close your eyes for a second, okay? Just make a commitment to yourself. Go inside, make a commitment to yourself to use this material for 90 days, to really squeeze everything you can out of it, to get the most from it. Because you're the only one that's going to have to answer to you in 90 days. There is no one best way. It's important for you to keep that in mind. There's no one best way. My way is to share a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different approaches, a lot of different perspectives with you, so that you can then pick and choose and integrate the things you learn into your own style so you can become more yourself, not so you can become more someone else. So open your mind during this program, okay? In my mastery program, I talk about going into a developmental detour where you're going to just pause for a while and you're going to take a little tangent off of your life, take an exit for a second. You're going to go into a space where you can just look at things a new way. Imagine not being yourself. Imagine what it would be like if you were somebody else. Imagine trying things you would never try. Okay, just go there mentally during this program. It's okay. And then pick and choose the things that you like, the things that fit for you. Realities of the bar and club scene. Okay, let's talk about the reality of the situation, because reality is important. It's important to address what's really going on and not be too idealistic about it. Attractive women dominate the bar and club environment. Okay, generally speaking, attractive women rule that environment. If you doubt me, feel free to just stand out in front of a really hot club one night and just kind of watch what happens at the door. Really attractive women that are all fixed up, they will walk up, they'll push their way through the crowd, and the doorman, who's never seen them before in his life, will get that knowing smile on his face, and he'll go, "Oh, hey ladies, how many do you have with you this evening?" And then he'll let them all in. Women he's never seen before. Now, do you think that he does that with a lot of groups of guys he's never seen before? No. And bars and clubs know that if they can attract a lot of attractive women, that the men will come, and the men will buy them a lot of drinks. So remember, this is their world. Okay, attractive women are very comfortable in this world typically, especially if they go out a lot. There are almost always more men than women in bars and clubs. Okay, almost always. Rarely you'll find a great club where they understand how to change this ratio up, but it's even more difficult to get into those clubs typically, and you really have to do some extra work. Just think about that for a second. There are almost always more men than women. Think about that from the women's perspective. Most men are looking to get laid at a bar or a club. That's the reality. And most of the women there are just looking to get attention. Okay? They're there to get approval, raise their self-esteem. A lot of women go out to clubs and bars and go home with their stack of business cards and numbers from guys and look at them and go, men love me. Now, I'm not woman bashing here. I'm just talking about the reality of what's going on out there, okay? There will always be men present in a bar or club situation who are very competitive and very aggressive. Always. It's always going to be there. Women are often annoyed before you get your first words out in bars and clubs. Music, friends, and competition from other men can be exceptionally distracting. There are a lot of distractions in these situations. Women that frequent bars and clubs aren't typically the most mature and emotionally healthy women you're ever going to meet. Again, I said women that frequent bars and clubs. So the moral, don't take this too seriously. Okay, don't take this whole thing too seriously, especially in the beginning. We're going to talk about ways to overcome all of these challenges that I talked about. In fact, we're going to talk about ways to turn a lot of these things into advantages. Okay, when you understand how to use these things to your advantage, it can become very powerful, especially when you're one of the only ones that knows how to use them. But they are the realities of the situation. And unless you're really skilled and you really know what you're doing and you're comfortable in these situations, these things are going to, assault your senses at first, and you're going to have to deal with them. It's okay. Negative aspects of meeting women in bars and clubs. All right, let's talk about some of the downsides. So as I mentioned a little while ago, the women that frequent bars and clubs, they aren't the most emotionally healthy, typically. I really believe that most men, probably 80, 90% of men, ultimately are really looking for a great woman that they can have a great long-term relationship with. Okay, they're looking for an attractive, interesting, intelligent, emotionally healthy, successful woman that will bring something to their lives and add more than just a female body. Okay, I believe that. Raise your hand if that's true for you, okay? Look at this. 95% of the hands just went up, probably. And when you go to bars and clubs, most of the women there are not that. So what the hell are you doing here, by the way? Anyway. Next, the noise and the drunkenness and the craziness and all the stuff, all the action that's happening in a bar and a club that's very distracting, it can take a while to get used to, okay? And for me, personally, it's been a while since I've really been that into going out to a lot of bars and clubs, but I've gone through a couple of phases of my life where I really spent a lot of time in them. For me, I found that I have to go to a bar or club several times to really kind of get the feel and become comfortable there and just kind of know what's going to happen with all these things coming out of the woodwork to assault my senses. So you're going to have to deal with that. Ironically, if you can really get just how not girlfriend quality the women in bars and clubs usually are, and at the same time raise your own standards, at the same time doing both of those things, realize how the women there are not the quality you're looking for, and raise your standards, that alone will make you more attractive to the women that are there. Does that make sense? Okay, positive aspects or advantages. There's no better place in the world to just try things out with no consequences, basically. You can just try one thing after another after another. You can try some stupid pickup line 20 times inside of 20 minutes just to see how just to see how it works. Literally, you can do it 20 times in 20 minutes and walk away 20 minutes later with 20 samples. You know how it works. You can refine it. In 20 minutes, you can get so much done. And the 20 women that you talk to, an hour later, they're not even going to remember you. It's over. The next day, you won't even be a little beginning of a memory in their past. Next, if you can make things work in this environment, if you can really figure this one out, then everything else becomes easy. Okay, this is the tough one. Everything else is... Once you learn how to meet women in bars and clubs, and then you're sitting in Starbucks and the cute girl next to you is on her computer with a book in her hand and there's no one else there, it's a no-brainer. You can get more practice in a few hours than you can in days or weeks or even months in the real world. And, again, when you learn how to meet women in bars and clubs successfully, everything else just becomes simple. This is a little philosophical perspective, all right? Getting numbers versus picking up chicks. All the guys that I know that are really successful at meeting women in bars and clubs, they can roughly be broken into two groups. There's the pick up chicks group, and then there's the get a lot of numbers group. And I've seen both do very, very well. The general philosophy of the pick up chicks group is, why would I want to waste the time of getting her phone number when I could just pick her up and we could go home now, or this kind of thing. And the philosophy of the getting lots of phone numbers person is, I can go out and in one night I can get 20 phone numbers, and then I've got dates for 3 weeks. And plus, I'll interact a lot more with the women, and I'll be able to kind of find out what they're like a little bit more and get to know them and maybe pick out that one that's a little bit better. Again, I've seen both philosophies work very well for the people who employ them. But think about it. Think about it for yourself. What's your objective? What would you like to do? What's more your style? You'll notice that I don't talk a lot about the concept of picking up chicks or getting laid or just anything that has that smack of using women. It's just not where I come from, not my style. I don't have any judgments against it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But for me, it works a little bit better to talk to a woman, get to know her a little bit. And, I can meet 10 women in one night, get all their phone numbers, the 3 that I really enjoyed, then, follow up with later and, get a lot more success. So that's kind of where I come from. You're going to hear from a lot of people that come from the other philosophy too and learn some great stuff. Pre-arranging your success. Pre-arranging your success. Much or most of the success in bars and clubs can be determined by what you do before and after you go out, not just by what you do when you're out. Who's heard of the Kobayashi Maru scenario? Who knows what that is? Oh, the Trekkies in the house. What? Which Star Trek movie was that? 2? Whoa. No comment. Know your Star Trek trivia. This was a fascinating experiment. What happened was Kirk was observing as, what was her name? I know, what was her name in the Star Trek? Come on, let's hear it. What was it? He knows it, and now he's not going to give it to you. Savick, right. We'll talk about some private work later. This is going to take more than just a seminar. All right. Savick was doing a training to become a captain of a ship, and she was going through this scenario where she had to decide what to do as the ship was basically getting out of control and she was going to lose it. And the training was set up so that you couldn't win. It was a character test. And Kirk walked in afterwards and talked to her a little bit. And then through the movie, it was kind of a little theme that he's the only one in history that had ever beat it, that had won. And later on in the movie, it came out that the way that he beat it was that he reprogrammed the training simulator to allow him to win. And I like that kind of thinking. Okay, I've talked about that since I originally saw the movie, 10 or 15 years ago or what have you. So I like that kind of thinking. I like making it so that you naturally win. Okay, gambling to me, you may have heard me talk about this. Gambling to me is I don't know if I'm going to win a little bit or a lot. That's a gamble to me. So how can you fix this so that you're much more likely to win, so that the odds are in your favor? Okay, things like getting to know key people at the bars and clubs or in the social scene. Think about the difference between rolling into a club with 5 really attractive women or 5 really unattractive guys. What's the difference? Just walking in the door, just as you walk in, you're with 5 attractive women or you're with 5 unattractive guys. Where do you go before? And where do you go after? Knowing where you're going before the place that you're going and knowing where you're going after the place you're going are very important. And we'll talk about the reasons for that in this program. But I just want you to get your mind around the idea that what you do before and after could be far more important than what you actually do at the club. And that the techniques you're going to learn and all the little tricks become relatively unimportant if you have all the rest of this together. Social networking secrets, okay? The social networking aspect of meeting women in bars and clubs could be the most important of all, in my opinion. The social networking aspect. Who you know, including doormen, owners, bartenders, who you go out with or who goes with you. What's the difference there? Who you go with or who goes with you? The concept of being in the mix, okay? Planting seeds, having several different things working for you over the long term. And this is far more powerful than thinking short term. Think about the term being in the mix. You're in the mix. Have you ever gone out to a bar or a club and you're there, and some guy walks in, and everything was just kind of normal, and then he walks in, and everybody knows him, and he knows everyone, and there's this energy that just follows him around through the place. Have you ever seen that happen? And you always go, who the hell is that guy? He must be some actor. It's probably the owner or whatever. I used to think that way too. Then, of course, I learned that it's usually just some dude. He's got to have his plumbing truck outside, and he just knows everybody. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago now, and kind of got heavy into the whole bar and club scene there, which is the place to go if you really want to get a lot of practice, learn a lot of things. I just couldn't believe it. You know, the guys that were everywhere, that were always kind of in the social mix, they weren't anybody special. They weren't some actor. They were just some guy. You don't have to be anybody special. You can do it too. Now, sometimes you don't have the time to do all the social networking that's necessary. Okay, and we're going to talk more about techniques for this later on in the program. Sometimes you don't have the time to do it all beforehand. Maybe you're in a new town. Like maybe you're not from New York and you want to go out tonight and you want to make this happen anyway. Well, you can do this short form style. Okay, there are ways to do this quickly. So when you get to the bar or the club, instead of going there to meet women, think connect first. Think, I'm here to network. I'm going to network for an hour before I do anything else. I'm going to plug in all the wires. Different way of thinking, huh? Start talking to everybody. Just start connecting with people socially. Doorman, bouncer, anyone, all the bartenders. Watch around the bar. See if you can get a feel for who the network hubs are. See if you can get a feel for who the connected people are. Make some friends that are obviously connected to the scene. Buy them a drink. Become established as being part of the inner circle. Okay? All you got to do is have a couple of those people standing next to you having drinks and laughing with you. And then what does everyone assume? They must be in the circle too. And you actually can kind of have an advantage because when you're the new person, you're the mysterious one. No, the other people in the circle don't know you, but they see you talking to the cool people. They're like, ooh, who's that? You've heard me talk a lot about status. This is a way to get a lot of status very quickly. And then finally, know 3 or 4 other bars or clubs that you're thinking of hitting up after this one. And have them on the tip of your tongue and always be talking about them. Know where you're going. One thing that I've noticed a lot of the guys that I know that are really good in this area, they walk into a bar talking about where they're going next. Isn't that interesting? They walk in talking about the next place they're going. Why is that? Think about it. You'll learn more in this program. Listen carefully for clues to the social scene, okay, the nightlife, after parties, etc., so you can use this valuable information as you meet people. Information is the currency, okay, and I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but remember that. Information is the currency in this scene, knowing where the cool things are. Great friends to make and have. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and I'd like you to think of some of your own that would work for you. Okay, she's married or in a serious relationship, but she loves helping guys meet women. You usually have to be a really cool guy. You really have to have the right vibe for one of these women to really want to help you meet women. But I'll tell you what, if you've got your act together and you're fun and you're cool, you know how to have a good time, you don't seem needy and like a jackass, when you run into one of these women, they'll just start going, oh my God, I'm going to help you meet girls. I'm going to introduce you to my friends. Who's had this experience or seen it? You know what I'm talking about, right? It's incredible. Okay, so she's married or in a serious relationship. And of course, that makes you really safe, and it really rubs off well on you, because now you've got this married girl who's saying great things about you. A lot of good implications there. Okay, she's single and what I'll call a player. Okay, she's one of these women that just loves to go out a lot, probably dates a lot of guys, and is fun and outgoing. And, I don't want to make these kind of women sound, like there's anything negative about them, because sometimes there is and sometimes they're not, but sometimes they're women of, let's call it, loose morals. But they can be you can have a fun friend, and you just keep her as a friend. You don't do anything else with her. Women like this can be fantastic friends, especially when you're going out to bars and clubs, because they're fun, they're outgoing, they love to meet everyone, and they, unlike a lot of people, can find the most powerful or most socially connected man in the club and walk right up to him and start a conversation, and 3 minutes later introduce you to him, and everybody's having a party. So think about that. Think about these network hubs that I'm talking about. Very important. Anyone here ever worked with technology or computers? Just raise your hand. Yeah, I was wondering, when I say that word network hub, everyone's like, oh, that's my language there, dude. Now we're talking. Guys that are good to be friends with. A guy that's great with women and is fun to be around in a bar or club setting. Okay, this is one of the ultimate types of friends to have. A guy that's really good with women and actually enjoys going out to bars and clubs and has fun doing it. Okay, it's a unique combination. Not a lot of guys out there like that. Another one, a guy friend who has a girlfriend or a wife that's one of these women that we just talked about, who loves introducing her guy friends to other women. Okay, that can be a lot of fun, because then you can be out with your buddy and his girlfriend or wife, who is bored with you guys and your guy talk anyway, can be over with her friends, and good, all good. And then finally, someone that's just well-connected in the bar or club scene, okay? Promoters. If you don't know what a promoter is, go learn. Start asking some questions and make friends with some. Okay, promoters are usually the people that get all the people to the club in the first place, and they know everybody. If you can make friends with a couple of promoters, you would not believe the value that has, the social currency that represents. And other people, bartenders, doormen, club owners. If you can get to know the owner of a really hot club or bar in your area, that will put you in right at the top level. Hanging out with that person, you'll go everywhere. You'll get in everywhere, and you'll hang out in the VIP room everywhere. And you'll instantly have that status connection. All right, I'd like you to do a little mental exercise for a second. Okay? Wherever you're at, just sit up straight. Close your eyes. I want you to imagine these different scenarios in your mind, just to expand your consciousness a little bit. Consider how going out with these different types of groups would affect your success. All right. You're out with one guy friend who's not good with women. Think about that experience. You're out with one guy friend who is really good with women. You're out with two or more guy friends who aren't good with women. Two or more guy friends. A bunch. Now think about going out with a group of guy friends, two or more, that are all really good with women. Now think about going out with one female friend, one woman friend, to a bar or club situation. Just you and one female friend. Now think about what it would be like to go out with two women who are both good friends and friends with you. So it's you and two women going out to a bar or club. Now think about going out with a group of women and just you. Group of women, just you. And now finally, imagine the impact on success if you go out with a big mixed group of people. Some guys, some girls, some single, some in relationships. Some of the guys are good with women. Some of the women like to help you meet women, whatever. Big mixed group of people. So what's the ideal for you? What do you think would be the best? Or the best couple of situations? What's the ideal? What's the one that would really work best for you? Good. Okay, come back. Raise your hand if you had your mind expanded a little bit just by thinking about that, okay? Good. I'd like to share a couple of my best personal ideas with you, things that I've done that I kind of came up with that I don't really think I stole from anyone. The one or two creative original ideas that I had around this area that really worked pretty well. These are not unique and original. Other people have come up with this stuff, of course, but these are ones that really worked well for me. The first one, starting with happy hour at your place. And this is when I mentioned earlier when I first moved to Los Angeles, I kind of got into this whole bar and club scene in LA for a while because I thought it was fun, and it was when I was really, it's right around the time when right before I wrote Double Your Dating. I was learning a lot of really great stuff. And I had this realization that I could have happy hour at my place and before I went out and just invite all the women that I had met that week and other friends or whatever, and it would be a great little mix, you know, and then that could determine where the evening was going. Another one of these things to create success for yourself before or after you go out. So here's the technique. When you're out, instead of thinking, I'm just going to meet a bunch of women, or I'm going to pick up a bunch of chicks, all you're thinking is, I have a little happy hour at my place every Friday between 7 and 9, or every 2 Fridays, or however you want to do it, and I invite my friends over for a couple of drinks, and then we go out. It's happy hour. I have happy hour at my place Friday. So now when you're talking to women, waitresses, bartenders, the toughest ones, whatever, if there's a little bit of a vibe, you go, hey, give me your email and your number. You need to come over to happy hour at my place. I'm going to have a little get-together this Friday night. I'm going to invite some friends over. Come have a drink. It's real low-key, not asking them out on a date. You're just saying, hey, come over and have happy hour. Come have a couple of drinks Friday night. It's very interesting when more than one woman who is single and interested in you is in the same room together, especially when they're at your place and you're already planning to go out afterwards. So have several places lined up after this, of course, that you're going, because what are you doing? You're always talking about the next place you're going. And it sure doesn't hurt when you show up at one of these places with a couple of attractive single women when you're trying to get in the door. Happy hour. Now, the things you can do to make this really great, the place I moved into with a couple of roommates when I first moved to LA had a great little bar. And so we immediately went in there, and I went down to the local guitar and music store, and I bought one of those cheap, like $40 disco balls, right, with the little motor and the little spotlight, you know. I spent all about $50, and I got up there on the chair, and I screwed the little motor in there. It's got the little thing. Put a light on that, you turn the lights out, and you put on some music, and it's like Studio 54. It's fantastic. It's great. In a little room, one of those big disco balls with a bright light on it. Studio Deangelo. I like it. Maybe not. So do that if you got a place in your house. Now, even if you don't have your own place, okay, even if you don't have a cool place or it's like out of the way, I guarantee you that one of the cool, socially connected friends that you're about to meet who has a cool place would not argue with this idea. Okay? Build an email list and have regular social get-togethers. Now, you can do these two together, and I did, with much fun and enjoyment and success. When you switch your mindset from just picking up chicks and meeting women in bars to, I'm going to build a social network, I'm going to make a bunch of friends, and you're no longer thinking of every woman as a potential mating partner or not, when you're out of that mode, and your mind is in, I am going to build a fun, interesting, well-connected social network, you start doing things a little bit differently. So you'll be at a restaurant, and you'll be sitting there having lunch alone, and the waitress won't be the kind of woman that you're attracted to. She might not be physically attractive. She's not your type or whatever, but she's fun, and you guys have like this fun thing, and you can tell she's just one of those people. You know what I'm talking about? fun, interesting. Everybody loves this kind of person. You go, hey, you know what? You need to come to happy hour. Give me your email. Or you just say, give me your email because I'm having a party or I'm going to have a little get-together or whatever, and you need to come. You'd have a lot of fun. And you just start building a big group of fun, interesting people. You bring all the characters that you meet together. If you make friends with 3 or 4 of these types of women that I'm talking about that are just fun and interesting and outgoing, but they're not your type, and then they're coming to happy hour and they're coming over to your place and you're having cool parties and you're doing cool things for them, you'll have more opportunities with women that you will know what to do with. They'll bring their friends, be out of control. Now, the other thing that comes to mind that is kind of counterintuitive also is when you're doing these kinds of get-togethers, what you can also do is start inviting the people that are socially well-connected over to your place. So when you're talking to the promoter that you just met at the door of the club, because now instead of going to the club and just like standing in line for a half hour to get in and then getting in and going, all right, I'm finally in, let me go buy a girl some drinks, and you're there thinking, okay, how do I plug into this? And you're looking for the promoter. You're trying to see who they are so you can, okay, that's the person I'm going to connect to. And then when you walk in, you wait for them to be over by the bar, and you walk over and you go, hey, let me buy you a drink. And then you buy them a drink, and you get their number. And then you say, hey, you know what? You need to come over to happy hour. You need to come over to my place. I'm going to have a little get-together. Okay, you can use these opportunities to make a really interesting group of friends that work and play very well together. So once you've built up this little network, what you then want to do is grow it. Okay? Build an email list. Build an email list. If you'll get a list of 20, 30 different women that are cool, fun to hang out with, fun to go out with, and then you have a little get-together maybe once a month at your place. Maybe it's a Sunday afternoon barbecue or a little mixer. You just take them all and you put them into the BCC box and tell them to come. If you invite 20 or 30, how many are going to show up? 5, right? 7, I don't know, 3, whatever. But there'll always be some. And you'll always have a base to start with. Always. You'll never be without one. And my own experience with this was I had a list. I kept it in my Word doc. And when I'd get phone numbers and email addresses, I'd just take them and I'd drop all the phone numbers in one place and I'd put all the email addresses in a big list. And again, probably once a month or so, whenever we'd have like a social mixer on a Sunday afternoon or a barbecue, I'd just drop them all into the BCC box, take 5 minutes, send out a quick email, and chicks. It's great. And fun ones, too. So build the email list. Think of this like investing, not like spending. Investing, not spending. Most people spend their time, effort, energy, and money. Invest. Think about investing yours for a while. Put off the instant gratification in order to have as much instant gratification as you would like. And a lot more fun, too. And again, if you don't like your place, one of the people that you meet when you're doing this will have a cool place that would love to do this stuff. Okay, guaranteed you'll meet a guy who's really cool, he's well-connected, he has a great house, and he just doesn't have his act together enough to do this, and you say, I'll handle the business end. Okay, you handle the house end. And the booze. In order to get into the in-social mix, you need information. Information. Okay? Information is truly the bar and club scene social capital. It's the currency, like I said before. Information. So start thinking about how information can have value to you. If you know where and when the best parties are, and you know the best people who are having them, or people who, at the very minimum, can get other people in, then you're in. If you're connected, then you're in. Networking is the answer. Networking is the highest leverage activity, in my opinion, when it comes to the bar and club scene. Social networking. It's the highest leverage activity. If you think you're going to remember that, write it down. Networking is the highest leverage social activity. So the first thing to do is start listening for information of a specific type. And this is what's going on. You want to know what's going on more than anyone. All the times when you've been out in the past and you've heard girls say, oh, we're going to a party over in the hills after this, or there's an after party over at blah, 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 blah. And all those times when you've thought to yourself, oh, I'm not invited, I'd never get in, or oh, blah, 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 and you've blown it off, realize that that's currency that you're throwing away. Just knowing that there's a party in the hills is currency. Just knowing that one piece of information. Because now, when you're talking to another group of people, and they're saying, oh, what are we going to do after this? And you say, I don't know, I think there's a party going on up in the hills. They go, oh. Now you change your status a little bit. Oh, you know something. And then you say, yeah, I heard there's after hours over at this other club too. Even if you're not going, even if you never go to any of these things, just knowing about them has high value, tremendous value. So start searching for information. Hunt for currency. It's like money laying on the ground all around you when you're out at a bar or club. It's happening all around. Just reach down and pick it up and then start spending it. You can spend it immediately. Once you get into the mix a little bit, the best place to get this information are the people that are already in. So you start asking the promoter, hey, what's going on after this? And the promoter will know of 10 parties. Ask the bartender, hey, what are you doing after this? A lot of bartenders go out after they get off work because they're so wired up that they can't just go home and go to sleep. So they go out after work, and they relax with a few people, have a couple of drinks, wind down. And what does this mean? They know where everything is. They know what's going on. So start asking them. And finally, probably the best way to spend this currency that you're finding, this information that you're getting, is to start sharing it with influential people. So when you find out about an after party, go over to the promoter that you just met and tell them about it. Why? Because you're much more valuable if you're seen as a source of information. They know how to recognize instantly someone that knows how to get information, and that's who they like to be connected to. So now you're the one that's bringing the information to them. So if you know where the party is or the club or the after party or whatever you're doing, now you're mentioning it to all the people that have all the social power. That's the best way to spend it. You'll get the most back in return because now you'll just be seen as someone that's in the mix. You're one of those people. And finally, after doing this social networking, after really hooking up all the wires, becoming one of those hubs that's kind of central to the network, you'll be able to create magic. You'll be able to do things that other people can't do. And you'll be able to walk into a club, you'll be able to walk up with 7 guy friends, and the rope will just open up for you, and you'll be able to get all of them in. Now, the doorman who you know will look at you and go, as you're doing it, okay, but you'll be able to get them in. Be able to do amazing things. It's a completely different world. Who knows what I'm talking about, by the way? Good. I want to introduce an investment and return formula to you here. I want you to think about this from another perspective. Increasing several areas a little each and then compounding the results so that your lifestyle brings you as many opportunities with women as you can handle. All right, consider these areas. Creating and improving your own fashion style and appearance. Okay, just think about these areas. I'm going to give you 9. Building a list of socially connected people who are always in the mix. Okay, just building a list of them, just knowing them. Going to high probability places. Places where you're more likely to meet the kind of women that you're interested in. Knowing influential social network hubs at the places that you frequent. So knowing the influential people at the place that you like to go to. Learning how to start conversations more effectively. Improving your body language to increase attraction. Improving your body language. Learning how to dial up attraction or amplify it with your communication. Having 10 or so standard comebacks for common situations. Just having stuff that's programmed in there off the cuff. You just say it every time because it's the way it is. It's just programmed in. 10 or so good comebacks that are funny and interesting. Leading a woman physically and having the next place all lined up. Okay, leading her physically. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Knowing when and how to get an email or a phone number. Okay, just knowing when to do it and how to do it. Now, if you increase each of these 9 areas by 20%, okay, you got 9 areas increased by 20% each, what will your overall improvement be? Who's got the math? Who's good? Because they compound. You with me? They influence each other. If you improve one area 20% and another area 20%, you don't get 20% increase. You get what? Come on, math geniuses. What do you get? Do you get 44%? A lot more than 44%? Well, if you calculate all these things out, if you put it into a spreadsheet, 9 areas increased by just 20%. And by the way, raise your hand if you can increase these 9 areas by 20% each. Just 20%. Okay, right? You'll get 619% more success. This is an idea that I got from business, actually. I got this from Jay Abraham, who's a great business thinker. Isn't that interesting that if you just increase your effectiveness 20% in 9 areas, a little bit, you could have over 6 times the success. 6-fold. Multiply by 6. Maybe I should call this sextupletize your dating. So remember, this is all about you. It's not about her. It's all about you. It is not about the woman that you're talking to. It's all about improving yourself in the areas, getting a little bit better here and a little bit better here, shoring up your weaknesses and really capitalizing on your strengths. It's not about finding one secret formula or one trick or one technique that's going to solve it all for you. Let's start moving down toward the ground level here. Personas and bars. Raise your hand if you've ever run into a woman's persona at a bar. Only half of the people in this room, huh? Interesting, right? You know what I'm talking about when you run into the, it's like running into a brick wall. You run into a woman's persona. There's like this shield that is between you and her, and you can just perceive that nothing that you do can get through it. Now, how do these things develop? I find this topic very interesting. I like to think these things through. When you walk up to that attractive woman who's standing there, who just knows she's getting all the attention, and you start talking to her and you run into that, how did that happen? How did she go from being a sweet, friendly girl who's nice to everybody to this, and why? A lot of guys make the mistake of thinking, well, she must just be a not nice person. She must be a nasty person. And that's usually not the case, because I can almost guarantee you that she has some friends who, when she sees them, she goes, hi. And it's not about you, because she doesn't know you. Okay, so it has nothing to do with you. So what happened? Well, you probably see where I'm going. After going out, for a couple of years, and every night she goes out, she has 25 drunk, stupid jackasses walk up to her, think they're being really original and all saying the same things, trying to win her approval by trading their balls, basically. She like my balls. Right? After that happens enough times, right, she has to just think, it would be much easier to just be mean to all these guys so they get lost. So much simpler. It truly is time management. Okay, it's like a business concept. It's time management for women. Just be rude and cold, and usually the guy will go away. By the way, this can be a huge advantage for you if you know how to deal with it. We'll talk more about that later. What's fascinating to me is that most often when you meet a really strong persona, a person's really powerful persona, that it's a projection, it's a mirror image projection of what's actually going on inside them. So in other words, if you see a person that's really arrogant and stuck up and like a bully, it usually means that they're a very insecure person on the inside. Okay, if they've got that real thick persona. So remember, when you're dealing with that woman that has that intense, powerful force field around her, that it's just a projection. It's actually a mirror image of something else. The first thing I'll say about how to deal with this, and you're going to learn a lot more as you hear from some of my guests that are going to share later today, is to remember that it's temporary. It works on most guys because most guys just walk away. Most guys just hit that and they bounce off and they go, oh, wah, wah, wah. And they walk away. If you just hang in there for a few minutes, if you just don't let that force field affect you, and you just keep talking as if everything's normal, a lot of times, probably half the time, the woman you're talking to will just kind of turn normal after a while. Interesting. And then the next great thing to do is remember that just because that happens doesn't mean she doesn't love you, doesn't mean that you're a bad person, or you should go lower your self-esteem immediately. It just means, again, that she doesn't know you. It's her little thing. So stop back by once in a while to see how she's doing. See if it's still there. Right? Walk by the next time you see her and like bump her and go, hey, what's up? And if she's still got it, go, still got it, huh? And then just walk off. Leave. She'll go, what? Got what? Then walk up next time and go, hey, what's up? Oh, not this again. Right? Have fun with it. Don't let it get to you. It's not about you. Truly, most of the time, you can just break through it if you don't acknowledge it, if you just can almost be blind to that tough persona. This is one of my favorite concepts. You've heard me talk about the instant you in my newsletters. So let's talk about how to weird a girl out, right? What's the best way to creep a girl out? Talk about Star Trek. What? You know what? Yell a few of these things out. Biter? Get in her space. Stare at her constantly. Stand right next to her the whole time. Tell her her middle name. Use insecure body language. Act nervous. Talk to the back of her head. You guys are coming up with some really good stuff. This is the most creative group I think I've ever been in for this kind of thing. Who is an expert at weirding girls out? Oh. Mess up her hair. Oh, that's a good one. Touch her face. Excuse me? Talk about your job and other boring things. Tell her her mom's hot. I don't know if that'll weird her out. Culture's changing, dude. Didn't you read the Motley Crue book? All right. So what's the commonality here? What are the commonalities of things that weird girls out? What are they? Just yell a couple of them out. Being socially inappropriate. Insecurities. That's good. Being uncomfortable. I think what a lot of it comes down to is not getting it. Not knowing how these things work. Not knowing the process of how men and women connect with each other. Right? All the steps that happen between the first eye contact and mating. And then second, not having your own act together. Okay, being insecure. Not having dealt with your insecurities. Not knowing how to interact with women. Not knowing how the scene works. Not knowing the etiquette and the protocol of what's happening. Okay, if you don't get those things, it's going to be very difficult for you to have any success by learning some cute trick or technique. One of my favorites, by the way, and you see these in the newsletters, are when guys write in and they're like, I tried your technique and I walked up to this girl and I said it, and she didn't give me her number and your stuff doesn't work. And then they go on to talk about how their issues with their mom and you know what I'm saying? And my ex-wife, stops by the house all the time and I can't help get your act together. If you get the inside together first, the outside will work much better. Does that make sense? All right, let me give you a couple of quick techniques. And by the way, most of this program is going to be other people sharing. Most of this program is going to be other people sharing. This program is going to have lots of tasty stuff and pickup type lines. So I'm going to get out some of my ideas in the very beginning. Okay, normally I'd wait till much later for this. But I'm going to give you my favorite 5 quick ways to get an email or number. Okay, these are quick. These are when you've started a conversation and you've been talking to her for 30 or 60 seconds. This might be a waitress or a bartender or some girl you met at the club, whatever. Okay, I'm just going to give you 5 different ones that you can use. And I have used all of these many, many times. These are 5 of my very favorites. This is a great one that's very disarming. You've been talking to a girl and you go, hey, do you have a card? Throws most women off. What? Have a card? Yeah. Do you have a card? If they do, they whip it out and they give it to you, and then you say, what? Good. Write down your email on there, and then a phone number that you answer. Right? She just gave you her information, so she'll give you whatever else you ask for. And then if she says no, an answer I love to that one is, well, make one up for me. What would it look like if you did have one? Here's the pen. Okay, it's charming. Again, it's disarming. It's interesting. And it also has there's a subtle little kind of fun trick in here. When you go, do you have a card? If a woman doesn't have a card, she usually feels a little socially knocked down a little bit. Because what you're doing is you're asking kind of a professional question and she kind of knows it. And if she doesn't have one, then you're going to be assuming that she must not make a lot of money and maybe she's not cool and, right? No, I don't have a card. You go, oh, right? It's good. It's fun. Takes control of the moment in a fun way. You've probably heard me talk about this one before. This is my very favorite, is to just look at a woman and go, do you have email? And I don't know why you can ask, do you have email and not, do you have a phone? I mean, if you say, hey, do you have a phone? Actually, asking if they have a cell phone is a great one. I'm going to talk about that one in a minute. Do you have email? And, most women say yes. And when they say yes, you just treat that as an agreement that she's going to give it to you. And 99% of the time, when you just hand her the pen, she'll give it to you. Another great one that is, I don't know why this one works so well, but probably because of the reciprocity that's built in is, hey, let's trade information. I'll catch up with you later. Let's trade information, and I'll catch up with you later. Let's trade information. Trading information is very non-threatening. Hey, let's trade information. I'll catch up with you later. And it's I'm going somewhere. Like maybe you walk up to the bar and you're talking to the bartender for a second. She's funny. You've got a little vibe going, and you're like, you know what? Let's trade information. I'll catch up with you later. It's hard to say no to that one. Let's trade information. It sounds so damn fair, doesn't it? And it also kind of sounds like you're doing her a favor. Let's trade. I'll catch up with you later. Kill him. Bring her to me. All right. This is a good one. Ask a woman if she has a phone on her. Hey, you have a phone on you? And if she says yes, say, give it to me. Hey, do you have a phone? Give it to me. This is a great one. And what do you do when you get it? You take it and you call your phone, and then you press send, and then your phone rings, and you pull it out and you go, okay, cool. And you hand it back to her, and you say thank you. And it's funny, and it's stupid, and it's charming, and it's disarming, and And it works incredibly well, too. I have a friend who told me about this one. It's great. And, by the way, when you do this one, it's really good to be kind of mysterious almost. And you say, hey, do you have a phone? Or if she's got a phone in her hand, you say, hey, give me your phone. And you're serious. It kind of has that overly mysterious, what's going on here? Give me your phone. Take it and you dial. Then you pull your phone out, or you just dial. My friend told me that he did it, the original, where this came from. He was at the gym, and there was a really, really hot girl. You know how at the gym these days it's kind of a weird vibe, you know? And I saw that she had her cell phone. So he just walked over, and he goes, because he had seen her, and it was just, the kind of, hey, walks over. She was on the Stairmaster or something. He goes, hey, give me your phone. And she said, okay. She handed it to him. He called. He didn't have his phone on him. He called his home number because he has caller ID. Send. Didn't, went through and put it off. And he went, all right, thanks. And he walked out. If you can put humor and charm and mystery into these things, it works so much better. Okay, you're so much more memorable. And these are things you can do that aren't creepy. They're not too weird, And then the other one that's good is if you're talking to a girl and it's fun, it's happening. And you go, all right, I got to get out of here. You hand her your phone. You just take it out. You go, here. And she'll go, guaranteed she'll look at it and go, what? And then, of course, you can treat her like she's stupid. Duh. She'll be, what? Put your number in it. Oh, right? Okay, so any of these little situations that can be set up where you know where they're going and they have a little funny twist, they're magic, really. And this is the model for picking up chicks right here. One of my very first kind of friends and mentors in the area of being more successful with women, who taught me a ton. I did an interview with him. It's the Greg interview. It's one of the first ones I did. This guy is so successful with women, I just can't even believe it. I mean, he can literally just go out anytime he wants and meet a woman, and if he wants, take her home, go to another bar with her, get a date, whatever. And he has a few little things that he does that are really the bulk of his success. And this is one of the things that he explained to me when I very first started, and it made a lot of sense to me. And since I've learned this, I've watched, and a lot of guys that we might call naturals, they do this. And I'll call it physical leading and the right now date. There's a certain magic about taking a woman and leading her somewhere physically. Taking her and leading her somewhere physically. You might have heard relationship experts say that if you and your girlfriend want to move in together, don't move into her place. Why? Because it's her territory. You can move in and start paying the rent yourself. And guess what? It's still her place. Guess who learned this lesson the hard way at some point in his past? And will never, ever do it again. How can you be paying all the rent and it's someone else's place? I still don't, you can see I still have issues with that. How is that possible? The lesson here is that humans are territorial creatures. We're very territorial. We're very space-oriented and territory-oriented. There's a part of our mind that is the part that's in control of a lot of things, and we don't even realize it, that's always calibrating space, territory. It's interesting to watch a group of people like this come into a room and watch them get oriented in their territory and spread their stuff out and try and make a lot of space. And you'll notice that people that sit on the ends of the rows, sometimes they're taking up a lot of space or doing their little thing. Everybody's looking around going, you jackass. if you lead a woman physically somewhere, there's a suggestion that you're going to your territory, or at the very worst, a neutral territory. But when you say, hey, come over here, let's go over to this other part of the bar, and then you take her, there's definitely a vibe of, I am taking you, I'm leading you to my territory, and that's where we're going to land. Anywhere new is good. Now the next and very ingenious piece that he taught me is what I'll call the right now date. I just made those words up. You can think of it however you want. If you're at a bar with a woman that you've just met and you're hanging out and you're talking to her, and you came separately, you just met her right there. How is that different from if you've met her at the bar and now the two of you left and went to another bar? How is that different? Right? If you say to her, hey, let's go over to this other place, and then the two of you go over to the other place, even if it's next door, okay, the bar next door, when you walk in, now you're what? Together. Really, there's a lot of psychology to that. There's a lot of deep psychology in the now we're together. We were apart, now we're together. In the club, you'll find that she hangs out with you naturally. She's always checking to see where you're at. Now you're on a date. Okay, psychologically speaking, now you're on a date. So it's the mini date. So it's very powerful if you first meet a woman, if you immediately take and lead her somewhere. My friend who taught me this, he said, first thing I do is I always say, hey, let's go over to this other part of the bar. And I lead her to the other bar in the bar, or another space, or another room. And then I say, hey, let's go dance. And then he takes her and he leads her to the dance floor, and they dance. And then he says, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go to another place. And then they go to another place. And he credits this simple sequence with much of his success. Who knows what I'm talking about, by the way, in this world, right? Can validate this. Good. And there are a lot of different steps you can take here. This doesn't have to be, I'm just taking a woman home. Okay, you can do things like go to the next place and then maybe go get, a bite to eat or get some breakfast or something like that, and then call it a night, and it can be over. And you still extended it, got to know her better, and had a much more successful kind of an evening, and she'll feel much more attached to you. I'm going to have a special guest come and share with me. He's going to actually teach the next 2 sessions with me. This is a friend of mine I've known for several years now. He works with me, and he's particularly good at meeting women in bars and clubs. He knows a lot about it, and we collaborated on a lot of material, and so he's going to come up and share for the next 2 sessions. So give a big round of applause to my friend Craig. This is the famous Craig from the Craig interview. Raise your hand again if you heard the Craig interview. Okay.
And if you hear anything about me from the guys who do know me, it's all a lie.
That's good. So what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about the 2 biggest mistakes men make in bars and nightclubs and what you can do to avoid them. And then I'm going to talk about some of the differences between guys that are successful in bars and nightclubs and the majority of guys that go home alone. So,
tell me, Craig, what are the 2 biggest mistakes?
Well, you're about to find out, David.
Let's
get started. Well, first of all, what do most guys do when they're trying to meet women in bars and nightclubs? What do they do? Just, throw some things at me. Buy them drinks, right? Try to dance, ask them to dance. Yeah, follow them around the club, that's a good one. Actually, the sad truth is that most guys don't approach women at all in bars and nightclubs. And instead, they do things like stare at them from afar, hoping something's going to happen, or linger around the areas she's hanging out in, hoping that she'll accidentally bump into them. And
by the way, raise your hand if you have ever stared at a woman from afar, hoping she would just walk up to you for some magical reason.
I've been there. And, really what most guys do is sit there and think up reasons not to approach. Maybe she has a boyfriend or she won't like me or whatever. And the big mistake here is guys think something's going to happen without them actually doing anything, and of course it's not.
You know what? That's a fascinating one. It amazes me just how good guys are at figuring out why things won't work. Raise your hand if you are an expert at figuring out all the reasons why it won't work, all the ways it could go wrong. Right? Isn't that fascinating? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's think for a second about a night out in the life of an attractive woman. Like David was saying, she walks up to the club. There's a huge line in front. She walks right past it while the guys are hooting and hollering. Gets in free. Throughout the night, 5 guys come up and ask her if they can buy her a drink. 3 guys come up and ask her if she wants to dance. A few guys come up and ask her what time it is, thinking they're going to be slick, sort of conversation that way. Done that myself, been there. It's okay. My favorite is, hey, do you have a cigarette? Guys will go up and try to take a picture with her, and
that's smooth.
It's pretty sad. I mean, the main problem with these things is the guys that are doing this stuff actually think that it's original. They'll go up to her and be like, hey, how you ladies doing tonight? And think they're like the first guy that actually had the balls to approach her. I mean, come on,
You may have heard me talk about this a couple of times, but just remember, the thing that you're thinking is the original thing to say to her, the original compliment that you're coming up with, or the original way to ask her to dance, or the original way to buy her a drink. A lot of other guys think they're being original, and they've come up with the same thing. And men tend to come up with the same boring, predictable stuff and think it's very original. Okay, so the more original you think something is, the more lame and just like everybody else it's probably going to come off. Interesting rule of thumb. By the way, I've noticed that walking up to a girl and telling her that she looks just like your ex-girlfriend, I don't know why, but that doesn't work very well. Yes, I've tried that one. And have you ever felt really bad about something you tried one time because it was so stupid? Good. Good.
Well, that's true. You actually have to make the mistakes, and get rejected a few times to realize that you got to do something different. So, a few more things that you don't want to do, unless you're trying to bore her to death, would be like, try to impress her with your job, money, experiences. Ask her the same old, what do you do, where do you live questions. A lot of guys will go up and, try the direct approach, hey, what's your name? That'll work every once in a while, and sure, if you're a good-looking guy and you have a good vibe about you, she'll give you a little bit more time to make an impression, but not much. Women come to see these things as warning signs over time because they see them so much. So they use these things to actually disqualify men. As soon as you do one of those things, it puts you in the category of everybody else, and you're done before you begin. When I was starting out in this stuff, luckily I had a lot of friends who were naturally good with women, and I'd go out to the bars with them, and I'd try to figure out what they did differently, why they got so many more women than I did. And I paid attention to the lines they used and their techniques, and, I'd borrow them, and I'd have marginal success using the lines and, the moves that they had, but I found that I really didn't truly have consistent success until I internalized the beliefs and attitudes that they had. So, the techniques, they'll work by themselves every once in a while, but when you really get your inner game down, that's when you can start using the techniques and really have massive success with them. So, I want to talk about some of those differences, because when you have the framework down, you don't really have to memorize any of these lines because you'll just be able to make them up on the spot, and that's the beauty of it, because you'll know that you can go out and meet women anytime, anywhere, and it's actually easier, once you have this stuff down, because you'll find that women start coming to you.
What Craig's saying right now is very, very key. That you've probably heard me talk about enough that that this is my belief. But if you get your inner work together, it might take a little more time, a little more effort. If you work on the inner stuff, the outer will take care of itself. The guys that I know that are the best with women, the ones that come up with the smoothest lines where everyone goes, oh man, that was such a great line, whatever. It's not because they're good at coming up with pickup lines. It's because they understand the game. They have their inner life together. They know what they're doing, and so they don't come off as being weird or spooky. Often if you take a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, he's very insecure, and he used the same line, he'll look like a jackass, and everyone would go, you're a jackass.
So first of all, I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the things that those naturals have inside of them, the real reasons why they get women, and then later on I'm going to talk to you about some techniques and things like that. But I just want you to understand that what we're going to talk about first, and that inner game stuff is 100 times more important than the actual techniques, lines, and things like that I'm going to share with you later. One of the big realizations I had picking this stuff up was that the guys that I knew that were naturally good with women had this cool vibe that women would pick up on instantly. And it was like when they'd go up to women and they were talking to them, they just had this attitude of, do you know who I am? Or, come on now. Like the women should instantly like them, and they could just get this across without saying it, Whereas a lot of guys will go up to women and start, flaunting the Rolex or, using other things to impress them. These naturals did this with this vibe that they carried. And I realized that was a huge step of the process, and I want to talk about some of the things that they do to convey this vibe and how you can master these things and use it to make this happen yourself and start getting those reactions, good reactions off the bat.
I want to comment on that for a second. I think most of us know what cool feels like. Okay, we either know what it feels like because we can be cool or because we've met cool people. But there's a certain, and I'll call it a vibe, that some people throw off that makes other people comfortable naturally being around them. And a big barrier I found that a lot of the guys that I work with run into is this issue of, well, I want to be myself. I don't want to learn any of this stuff because I don't want to not be myself. That doesn't feel like me. If you can learn to be cool and be you, so that people feel calm and comfortable naturally around you, so they just relax and they just chill out and they go, oh, all right, this guy's cool. Okay? You can be yourself a lot more. You'll learn that if you get to that point, that you can actually be yourself more. And I suggest that if you aren't at that point, that you're being yourself less than you could be being yourself, if that makes sense.
So let's talk about the universal traits of these naturally cool guys. The first thing I noticed about these guys is they really don't care what people think about them. They never place any meaning on one interaction. They can go up to some women and get rejected, and it's no big deal, And they don't mind, pissing someone off every once in a while. They're totally okay with it. They know everyone's not going to, like what they have to say, and they don't care.
Who cares too much about what people that they don't know think about them? Good. As an affirmation, you might write down, I don't care what people think of me. I don't care what people think of me. The irony of not caring is they'll think better of you.
Another big thing about these naturally cool guys is that their respect and friendship must be earned. And to do that, you either have to be a friend of theirs or kind of show them that you speak this cool language. They don't give bonus points for looks or money or material possessions. You got to have that inner game going if they're going to respect you. They don't just instantly respect a woman because she's hot or, throw their balls away like so many other guys do. And the same thing goes with guy friends. They aren't the types that will just, befriend anybody because they're needy. They know that they're the type of people that other people want to be around. So they use that and make people earn that friendship.
A good affirmation for you. By the way, raise your hand if you have ever given people respect that they didn't deserve, especially women. Good. Stop that immediately. Stop that. So write down an affirmation. My respect must be earned. My respect must be earned. This is good stuff.
Thank you.
I should put this in a program.
Well, I learned some of it from you.
I learned it from watching you.
All right, enough of that. Okay, another thing about these guys is they're open and honest. They're not afraid to say what's on their mind, If you got an ugly shirt on, he's going to let you know. He doesn't care about pissing you off again, Not afraid of that. And I learned an important lesson when I was growing up. I had, my mentor Phil was kind of like an older brother to me, and we'd be making plans for the weekend. And he'd be like, "Hey, do you want to go see this movie?" And I'd be like, "Well, I don't know. What do you want to do?" And cool guys don't have that iffiness about them. They're decisive. If you ask them if they want to do something, they'll either give you a yes or no without thinking about what you think about their answer. They tell you how they feel. And I found that if you make it a point to be more decisive and let people know that you have an opinion and that you respect yourself enough to state it, they'll give you more respect in return.
So who here has held back an open, honest opinion because they didn't want to offend a woman at some point in their life? Okay, good. Stop that too. So maybe write down, I am open and honest with all women. I am open and honest with all women. Raise your hand if you've ever been indecisive about something because you wanted to know what she wanted to do so that you could do that thing. Good. I am becoming more decisive every day. These are good. I may have shared with you in some of my past programs that there are times when I will write down, I'll make some affirmations like this, and I'll just write them down several times a day. I'll just keep writing them, and I'll think about them to just get them into my head, get some new thinking in there.
Yeah, another thing about cool guys is they're confident in those decisions they make, And it can be little things like if he's wearing a shirt and you tell him his shirt is ugly, he's going to probably tell you that you have bad taste in clothing, And possibly make fun of you for looking at another man that way,
Have you ever had a woman challenge you on something and you just crumbled because you wanted to win her approval, but not because you actually believed what she was saying? You just didn't want to upset her? Or a woman said something like, "Ooh, I don't like those shoes," and then you threw them away and burned them immediately instead of saying to her, "You are not cool if you don't like my shoes." So, just as an example, if a woman doesn't like a pair of shoes that I'm wearing, I'll usually make a mental note to make sure I wear them the next time.
Yeah.
This way I can have something that I know is annoying her that I can make fun of her about the whole night. And I can find people that like my shoes, and I can be like, then when she walks back over, I can go, "So what do you think of my shoes?" Again, even though I know what they think, and they'll go, "I think they're so cool." And you can look at her and go, "You're such a loser."
I love it.
Right, so I am confident in my decisions. I'm confident about the decisions I make. Demonstrate confidence in your decisions.
Yeah, another great one you can use if a woman says, "I don't like your shirt," say, "Well, it doesn't like you either." Great one. Yeah, another big trait and belief that cool guys have is what they're doing is always the best thing going. Like if they're talking to a girl on the phone and she's talking about some big party that she went to Saturday night and, how he missed out because it was so much fun, he'll never say, "Oh, I wish I would have been there. Oh, that sounds so cool. I wish I would have been hanging out with you." He'll just have that subtle, undertone that he was doing something more exciting and more important. Be like, "Oh, that's cool. Whatever. You missed out."
Have you ever felt have you ever had that emotional response of "I missed something" when a girl you like tells you about fun she had without you there? Oh, yeah. You know that feeling, right? She says, "Oh, I went out, I had the greatest time on Saturday night," and you're thinking, "Why didn't you even call me?" You're like, "Oh, man, Mom." Well, of course, guess what cool guys do? What he said. They were always doing something cooler. And it just comes across like she can tell that you were doing something cooler because you're just going, "Oh, that's probably a fun little party you went to there."
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and along these same lines, cool guys have the belief that they are always the best thing going. Like if she's talking about another guy she's dating or a guy she knows, he just has that undertone that he's better. It's kind of like you said in, I think it was a Mastery series about Apple computers. If you talk to a guy who uses an Apple or a Mac and you're talking about your PC, he's just got this subtle undertone that his Apple or Mac is better.
Where are the Mac people in here? I'm serious, the Mac people. The ones that volunteer at the store and all that funny stuff. Okay? Rick, keep your hand up. Now, keep your hand up if you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that Macs are better than PCs in every way. Really. I got people raising their hands that didn't even have them up before. See that? Right. Okay, you're wrong, but no, it's fascinating, isn't it? And Mac people always have that subtle, yeah, cute. Yeah, you got a little right mouse click button, whatever. Right? What's with that? If you haven't tried a Mac, go into any Apple store and try the newest one, and it'll convince you instantly that their systems are better. But that's beside the point. And by the way, as an affirmation there, I and what I'm doing are the best thing going. Okay? I and what I'm doing are the best thing going. There is no better. Even if there is something better going, you will never acknowledge it because you're too convinced that you're the best thing going. Kind of an undertone that I always have when I'm talking to women about whatever they were doing, even if what I was doing was lame. If they say, oh, what'd you do last night? And I say, I was just up late working, and they go, oh, you missed out. I went to them, and it's like undeniable that it was cooler than whatever I was doing, and they're like, I'm caught. I'll just be like, it sucked. She'll be like, no, it was fun. I'll go, it sucked. I wasn't there.
Nice.
Right? The fact that you're not there makes whatever she did not as cool as it could have been. So I and whatever I'm doing are the best thing going.
One of the biggest beliefs of all that these guys have is that their life and themselves are the most important thing. Women never come first in their lives. They always have something that's more important. Maybe it's their job, or a hobby that they're into, or just a general purpose. And if you have this thing going in your life, and women know that, and that they kind of feel like they're second place, they'll always strive to be first. They'll always work that much harder to get your attention and, become your first priority. Of course, the moment you do, it's over.
Oh, yeah, it's game over.
They'll work forever.
What do women say they want in a man? What's the thing that one of the things that they always say? I want a man who knows what he wants, has goals, is a go-getter, right? They're all implying that they're looking for a guy who has some direction in his life that he's going. It's interesting. They actually say this. They never say, you never hear a woman say, I want a guy who, when he meets me, says, I would like to buy you the little clear carrying purse for my gonads. Ever. Why do we show up with it and offer it as the first offering? Right? So you'll notice the guys that are really good with women, he's right on about this. Guys that are really good with women are like down on the list of importance.
All right. Now let's talk about how this applies to bars and nightclubs.
Fantastic.
Big thing I noticed going out with all these guys who were exceptional with women is that they set a distinctive presence when they walk into the club. And it's like everyone can feel it as they walk inside, And I learned that to be really successful in a bar, nightclub, or anywhere else, you have to be comfortable with your surroundings. You have to own the place. So the first thing that I do when I walk into a bar, I put my arms out and I say, my house. I either say it in my mind or out loud. And, I have the attitude that everyone there is a guest in my house and that, I belong there more than they do. And I try to think about it like, how would I act if I really was in my house? I mean, think about that for a second. How would you act if you were really at your house?
If you didn't write down what he just said, you're missing a huge piece. This has a lot to do with all the psychology we talked about, the territory and everything. Okay? Nobody belongs here more than me. This is my house. This is my territory.
So let's do a little exercise.
Let's do it.
All right? Stand up.
This feels a little fruity already.
Oh, yeah. Just wait. It feels silly, but watch. All right? It's amazing. All right? I want everyone to put their hands up, and at the count of 3, say, my house. All right, ready?
My house.
Woo! Again. My house. Feel it? Yeah. All right. Sit back down now. My house. You guys need to sit down.
Sit down. This is my house.
Yeah. Now, if you want to do something really funny, do that when you walk into one of your friends' houses. Totally freak them out. It's great. I love it.
You were telling me that one of your friends gets pissed off.
Oh, yeah. Dude, this is my apartment, man. Like, why do you say that? Yeah.
He really does this stuff. He actually does this.
Yeah.
And it works.
So let's talk about some more things you can do to take over the house or really own any place you're in. I learned from a good friend that if you have the attitude, that it's your house and you're actually responsible for everyone else having a good time in it, it's can throw off a really powerful vibe. And I've got a friend that'll walk up to groups of people in the bar and just go up to them and be like, "Hey, everyone here having a good time tonight? Cheers!" and put his drink up, and everyone will be like, "What are you going to say to that?" Sure. And everyone meets him, everyone sees him doing this, and he leaves, and it just leaves the group talking. Does he work here or something, or who is that guy? And he's just a guy out having a good time, but he gets all these conversations going, Another thing that's really powerful is going around and giving a cheers to everyone you pass by, or a high five, You can do this to, women. You can even do this to, mixed groups of people. Just go in, give someone a high five, and be like, "Who's this guy? Who does he think he is?" But at the same time, they're kind of jealous because you're having a better time than they are, and it sets a good presence.
I was out in Phoenix, I don't know, probably 6 or 9 months ago or something with a friend, and he said, "I don't know how to meet women in bars and clubs. He always does better in like Starbucks and those kind of things." And I said, "Oh, well, watch this." And I went and did his little thing where you walk through the club with the glass and you tink everybody's glass that you walk by. I do it with women only, but
sure.
We walked in, and literally within 5 minutes, I probably, tinked 10 or 20 girls' glasses. I mean, it was just one right after the other, and they were like, "Hi." And he looked at me and he was like, "That's interesting. That's a good idea. That works." It's an unconscious response. Unconscious, like a handshake. Can't help it.
Exactly. Yeah, and another great thing you can do to build a presence is greet the bar staff warmly. Like when you walk in and the doorman checks your ID, just be like, "Hey man, how's it going tonight?" And that not only gets you psyched up on the inside, other people will see that and hear that, and they'll be like, "Oh, who's this guy? He knows the bartenders or he knows the doorman." Do that with the girl at the register, the bouncers, anyone in the club. Just greet people warmly. And another big thing, speak with a loud, commanding voice that people can hear. Have you guys ever been in a club and you're talking with your friends, and all of a sudden you just hear some guy and he's just talking really loud. It sounds like he's having a great time, and you look over and he's got 5 girls laughing or whatever. When you can speak with a commanding presence, it kind of echoes all through the club and adds to that mystique that you can build up by doing many of these things together. Adds to your overall presence. And another one of my favorite things to do is when I go to a bar or club, I'll find a section of the bar and I'll claim it. I'll make it mine. And I'll usually try to find a spot with, some high traffic where I don't have to work, because I don't like to work when I go out to nightclubs. I like to just kick back in a place where I know women are going to be walking around. So my friends and I will grab a spot. Maybe it'll be a table. Maybe it'll just be a corner of the bar, and just post up, And it just sets the presence, and everyone can tell that that's your spot. And they're already in your house, so that's the next level.
I talked a little bit earlier about territory and being territorial. When you find a part of the bar or club that's yours and then you post up, what up?
Dog.
It communicates something on a subtle level. It's a nonverbal set of communication. It's communicating subconsciously with women. How would you behave differently if you went into a bar now looking for your area to post up and to take over? How would you do that differently than the way you do now? How would you stand if you said, "All right, this is going to be my territory. How am I going to stand in my territory? How would I stand differently? How would I behave differently?"
Exactly. And a big part of this is body language. You can do all kinds of things with your body language to make you totally stand out from everyone else in the bar. If you stand tall, puff your chest out.
Could you demonstrate that one?
Yeah.
Show me the puffing of the chest.
Well, it's something that you mentioned in your programs before. I guess it was a musician or a
it was
singer
me.
Lift the chest,
Oh,
well, it's the
you
best
go.
way to describe it.
Okay, there you go.
Of course, that guy probably learned it from me at some point and brought it back. See if there it comes around. But if you stand a little bit taller than everybody else, people notice.
Stand up. Stand the way you normally stand when you're in a bar, and don't lie. Right? Good. Now, lift your chest up. Imagine there's a string attached to the front of your chest. Right? Good. Now, pay attention to your feet for a moment. Balance the weight of your body across your feet, all the way across. I learned this from my friend Patty, who's actually joining us in the front row over here. Balance your weight all the way across your feet. Okay? Chest up. Okay? Now lift your head up. Now just feel how you feel differently. Next, take your hands and connect your thumb to your middle finger like this. Like this. And then relax it, but keep it connected. And then put them down at your sides. There you go. Much better.
Now try something else while you guys are still standing up. Grab your drink and hold it like you normally would when you're hanging out at a bar, like most guys do. You see how this kind of creates a barrier between you and everyone else out there? And when you have the drink here, you kind of have a tendency to slump towards it. Now try putting your drink down like this and holding that same position. It's a much more commanding stance, you know? And these are the subtle things you can do that everyone in the bar will notice and give you instant respect. Eye contact is another big thing, too. You guys can sit down now.
This is some good stuff, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, to touch briefly on eye contact, when you do these things, people are going to be looking at you. You know, you're going to stand out, and a lot of people are going to be making eye contact with you. And like David says, it's important to hold that and never be the first to break it, you know? So,
if you see a woman, if a woman walks by you and she looks at you and you're doing your whole thing, who looks away unconsciously, automatically, and can't control it? Raise your hand if you've ever had that happen at some point in your life. Okay, good. Get control of that. Learn to just be cool and not move and not look away. Even if you don't start talking to her in the moment. Just the fact that you weren't the first one to look away sets you up for a lot of success down the road. Unconsciously, it establishes you in a different place in her mind. I personally believe that even if she doesn't recognize you later when you start talking to her, she doesn't see, like, go, oh yeah, I know exactly who you are. It already established the social hierarchy, just that one little moment. Go ahead.
Yeah. Another thing I like to do is take up a lot of space. Like if I'm next to the bar, I'll lean up on it, you know, or sitting at a table, lean back, you know, put your arms out, and that just creates more of the vibe, you know. It's kind of an alpha male characteristic to, you know, take up as much space as you can. And the more of these things you do, the more commanding of a presence you'll set. You know, when you do all these things together, you're going to notice some really powerful and strange stuff happening. You know, people are going to be looking at you, wondering who you are, and, you know, even the bar staff will start to take notice. You'll start to have bartenders picking you out of the crowd and serving you a drink when other people are waiting in line. You know, it's really interesting.
I was just up in San Francisco weekend before last, or last weekend, with a good friend of mine, and we went out to an Italian restaurant. We were waiting to sit down, and it's this bustling place. It's real cool. Food's great, and we've gone there a couple of times. And while we were waiting, these two guys walked up, and they were older guys. They were probably, you know, mid-50s, 60, that kind of thing. And they were like, had the whole rock star thing going. Like one of them had like long blonde hair underneath this like skull cap, and the other one had these like funky shades on with these big, you know, Nelly-sized diamonds in his ears. And they had on like these funky like sports gear, and it was just kind of, they just had this weird vibe about them. Like, and I immediately looked at them and I thought, I wonder who the hell those guys are. They must be like, you know, the drummer and that one guitarist from Aerosmith that you never know who the hell he is, you know, or whatever. And but you know, and I kind of like looked at them, and they were just standing there. They were just like, weren't talking to each other. They were just standing there, kind of looking around, like noticing people looking at them. Like, yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, I gotta get close to these guys so I can recognize them and see who they are. And so then upstairs later, I realized that they had been seated, you know, a couple of tables away. They were like right next to us, and they had eaten all their food, and they were like, you know, after Italian food, they were like, and they had their hats off, and they were like, and I'm like, these are just a couple of regular jackasses. They just think they're cool. Anyway, you can do so much with the things that he's talking about here. And do you remember when he said you'll start having things happen that seem strange, that seem odd or unusual? I have a lot of friends that have very unusual things happen to them, right? I've seen women walk up and just start kissing guys. I've seen them like start grabbing them, do all kinds of incredible stuff just from their body language, just from the subtle way that they communicate.
I've actually stood in a bar just like that and tried to move as little as possible over like a period of time, and actually have had girls come up to me with their friends, start dancing in front of me, pay them no attention. Then they grab, one of their friends grabbed onto me, and her friend just started grinding on me. And like not even a second later, the girl that I was dancing with took my hand and put it on her breast. It just started grinding. But the funny thing is, like, it only lasted for about 5-10 minutes, because after that they just ran away, and I couldn't find them. I was like, at first I thought they were wanting me to chase them, and then I started looking around like 20-30 minutes later, and I was like, damn, these girls are really gone. But you're just like,
well, you gave them the hint and good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at some point you have to stop acting like a statue.
Yeah.
At some point. Next time, do it 2 minutes earlier. You know, scene.
I'm just saying.
Good. No, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Anybody ever seen or had one of those kind of experiences? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. Stuff happens a lot more than most people think. Let's go.
All right. I want to talk about one of the things that I learned that made the biggest difference in having success with women in bars and clubs. Now, I'm not a natural at this stuff. You know, I had to learn like everyone else. I mean, I used to go out and get, rejected hundreds of times, in a week. And like I said, I'd go out with these guys who were naturals, and I'd go out and I'd be like, all right, let's go pick up some chicks, So I'd go around the bar and I'd start talking to all the girls in there, and some would like me, some wouldn't. Meanwhile, my buddies would be back, like, hanging out, having beers, having a good time, and I'd go home alone, pissed off, and they'd go home with women. Oftentimes, the women that I would meet would, meet them next, and just naturally gravitate towards them. And
you were setting up the jackass comparison for them.
Yeah, it was really weird, because I was trying so hard. I was out there working, and my buddies would just hang out and kick back, and they'd end up with all the girls. And
yeah, you don't realize just how much you're helping other guys when you act like a dumbass.
Really. And this is when I had a lot of, lines and techniques, too. I wasn't, just fresh out of the water, or so I thought. I mean, I'd learned all their lines and techniques and moves, so I thought I was slick, and could get these women. And every once in a while I would, but never as many as these guys, And I remember there was a guy named Dave that, taught me a really important lesson. I'd go out with this guy, and this was the guy who would just sit at the bar. He wouldn't move all night, and he would never go home alone. It was amazing. And we were talking about going out one night, and I'm like, I made a joke. I'm like, Dave, I don't like going out with you, man, because I go around, try to meet all these girls, and they all end up going home with you. What's up with that? And he's like, dude, you don't get it. I'm like, what? It's like, man, the reason you don't go home with any of these women is because you're trying so hard and going around talking to all these girls, and, you just look like a needy, clingy guy, And as a matter of fact, some of the girls that I know that we hang out with have said this about you, that you try way too hard with girls. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, it hit me pretty hard. But it was really the most important lesson I ever learned, was that, you just got to kick back.
Raise your hand if you've never had someone tell you that you act too needy and clinging around girls. If you've never had someone tell you that, raise your hand. I'm serious. Raise your hand. Everybody's looking around. Should I? Let me say it again. If you've never had someone tell you you act too needy and clinging around women, raise your hand. If you've never had it, okay. Okay. You act too needy and clinging around women. Okay, I want to be the first. It's the best gift that someone could give to you.
Yeah, along those lines, there's no such thing as being too carefree and laid back, And the interesting paradox that I saw is that, most regular guys go out to bars to meet women. Let's go out and pick up some chicks, and they end up going home alone. Most naturals go out to the bar to have a good time, hang out with their buddies and just, chill. But they end up going home with girls. And it's kind of a strange shift, but I've never found an exception to that rule. So I studied this, and I came up with a metaphor to describe it. And what it comes down to is that regular guys, when they go out to bars, they go hunting for girls. While naturals, it's kind of more like a fishing mentality. Just relaxing, having a good time, and throwing out some bait every once in a while, and seeing what girls take it. So the point is, if you have a motive you'll project it subconsciously whether you know it or not. Women can tell if you're out there trying to pick up girls. But at the same time, if you're out there just to have a good time and you're not interested in picking up girls, women can pick that up just as easily, and that's what gets them picking up on you.
Yeah, if you were an attractive woman that was approached by guys all the time, would you be more attracted to and interested in going and hanging out after the bar or the club with the guy that went there to pick up chicks? Or would you be more interested in just hanging out with the guy and going home with and hanging out with the guy who is just there to have a good time?
Yeah, so think about that. Think about the difference between hunting and fishing. Think about that next time you go out, and how you can be more like the fisherman and just, kick back. Another big thing I learned is that you'll never be able to read some women, and it's not even worth trying. And, when you first start, learning this stuff and you look around the bookstores, there's all these books on body language and how to tell if she's interested in you. And
I know how to tell. She cocks her head to a 45-degree angle, licks her lips, and then strokes her neck gently, right? And then rolls her hips when she walks.
Bam. And points her knee towards you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now, I studied all kinds of this stuff when I was trying to learn this. All kinds. I read 3 or 4 books on this, She flips her hair, preening herself, But the problem is that only, works about 10% of the time because some women are too shy. Sometimes they're playing hard to get and they don't want to let you know that they're interested. Whatever. It's just impossible. So the solution I came up with is to have the attitude that it's always on. Treat any situation with a woman like she wants you bad. And if you think about it, women don't have respect for a guy who doesn't have the balls to make a move, whether that's, asking for a phone number, going for a kiss, or even going all the way, Mm-hmm. And if you take this attitude of it's always on, you go for it every time, women will respect that ballsiness, They'll see that you're a real man. And I found that it's often the trigger that puts it over the edge. Sometimes I'll be talking to a girl and, I won't be able to tell because you never can tell, and I'll just go for it, right? And I've had this happen to me a couple times. I've gone for it, and I've talked to them a little bit later, and, they'll be like, yeah, I remember when we hung out, and I wasn't really sure if I was into you or not, but then when you, pulled me over to the side, around the side of the bar and started kissing me, that, really turned me on and, really got me interested in you. And it's weird how that works, but it's so true.
It's funny because, I've spent a lot of time hanging out with this man here, and actually a few weeks ago, we went out the whole weekend together. We spent the whole weekend preparing for this program, and we just went out to go out, meet girls, have fun, and refresh our minds and talk about it a lot. And it's so interesting how the attitude of it's always on works with him. If something negative happens or something that seems like it throws the whole night off, he just goes, it's always on. Right? The next girl that shows up, there's just as much of a chance of being successful with her as 10 ago or whatever. It's always on. It's always on. How would you behave differently with women if you had the belief that it was always on? Always. What are the things you wouldn't do? Important? Stand up, please. Microphone.
Earlier, one of the things that you said don't do is initiate physical contact before you have a sign. But here you're saying there are no signs, it's always on. When I'm comfortable with a woman and I feel that I've reached that certain point in a bar or a club, I start making physical contact. So what do I do?
Well, that's an interesting one. I'm going to answer it, and then you answer it, please. As a rule of thumb, okay, I think that it's a bad idea to start touching women because I think it kind of weirds them out most of the time. Now, if you're good and you know the signs to watch for and you know what you're doing, you can be the exception because you know what's happening. And a lot of times, a woman can signal that she's interested in you without touching you. It doesn't have to mean that she's the one that's starting the contact. She can be doing other things, and if you know how to read those things, then you can take that as the signal. Another thing, too, I've noticed is that as far as I'm concerned, you have kind of a commanding physical kind of a presence, and I think things work just a little bit differently for guys who have kind of a commanding physical presence. I've seen a lot of my friends that are kind of bigger or buffer or what have you, do things with women, or they'll like grab a woman around the neck, or they'll like, pick her up or something like that physically. And it kind of has a powerful effect on them. So that's my part of the answer. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah. The attitude of it's always on doesn't mean throw your timing out the window. It doesn't mean you can walk into a bar and grab a girl and just start making out with her. You still got to, time it right. But when it comes down to that game time decision and you've been talking to her for a few minutes, you're like, will she give me her phone number, or, am I going to get rejected here? That's when you need to say, it's on, and just go for it,
Who here has ever been in a situation where you were talking to a girl, you're having some kind of interaction with her, and you didn't know if it was on, you didn't know if it was working, what was happening, and so you kind of like laid back, and then some other guy showed up, and within like 2 minutes got her phone number or left with her, and you just went, oh. You ever had that happen? Right. Well, when it's always on, you don't go, I don't know whether it's on or not, or whatever. You just go, it's always on. And you say, we're out of here. Let's go.
Yeah. And
time management.
Something crazy. One of the main experiences that led me to this attitude, I had been talking to this girl for a while on the phone, and we ended up hanging out. We went up to like a make-out spot. We were drinking champagne, and we were talking, sitting next to each other on a bench, and I kept looking over at her, trying to make eye contact, trying to kiss her, and she was even asking me, so are you a good kisser and all that stuff, and I'm just like looking, waiting for her to turn her head, and she just would not turn her head. We're up there for like 2 hours. The bottle of champagne's gone. I got nothing else. Like, we're like running out of things to talk about.
What's
going on?
Once you've exhausted the booze, it's like there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but she's sitting right next to me. She won't look at me. So I'm just like, okay, let's look at the facts. We're out here at a makeout spot. We're drinking champagne. We've been out here for 2 hours. I've been talking to her on the phone for a couple weeks. So I literally, she's sitting here. I went all the way around this way and started making out with her. As soon as we broke from that first kiss, she said, I've been waiting for you to do that all night. So
if champagne doesn't
write that
work,
down. It's always on. Seriously, it'll save you a lot of grief and, more importantly, a lot of regrets.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you just made. The fact that a woman would go hang out with you at night at a makeout spot with champagne.
Yeah,
if she agrees to go, you might just say, you know what, never mind. Go ahead.
Nice. So let's talk about another one of these big things, big differences between naturals and regular guys. Big thing I learned is that every woman loves a challenge. And I learned this from a woman. I had a girl that was, my best friend that's a girl. There needs to be a good term for that, but girlfriend, but not girlfriend. Anyways.
Girlfriend is kind of good, actually, because you can say one of my girlfriends. It adds all kinds of mystery to the whole thing. And the girl's like, what? One of your girlfriend? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm stealing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, this girl told me, this was when I was trying to figure out, how do I get good with women. She's like, well, every woman loves a challenge. And the fact of the matter is, most guys throw themselves at women, and, they think they're lucky if they have an opportunity to be with them. Society even calls, getting laid, getting lucky. And because most guys are easy, women know that they can get a man anytime they want. So, if you can do something different and give her a challenge, it's so attractive. So, I realized this, and I asked Nikki, I'm like, okay, so what makes a guy a challenge? And she's like, well, when I call him, he doesn't always call me back. And sometimes I'll want to hang out, and, he'll be unavailable. And, I can never tell if he likes me or not. So I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, don't you have to like him first and be calling him for him not to return your calls? And don't you have to want to hang out for him to be unavailable? I mean, that didn't make any sense. And what I realized is that the challenge itself is attractive. If you can spark that challenge from the start and let her know, then that's just as attractive as money, looks, or anything else. The fact that you are a challenge.